And we are live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the stream. I hope that you had a nice weekend, all that. Welcome back to another group therapy session of the Eurobubble therapy. Tonight, I have 3 guests with me instead of 2, but you'll see it's quality guests, so you'll be very happy about that. So with us tonight, we have Ian McCafferty, who is a production chief at Eurofound. Thanks, Ian, for taking the time to be with us. And then we have 2 other guests who come from the more or less the same team because they come from they are writers for the Schuman Show. So the Schuman Show, we had them on Twitch on the account a few months ago. So they are one of the famous comedy show in Brussels, making fun about the daily life in the bubble and the European Union. So we have Louise Day and Daniel Mora, who are writers on the show. So they come up with the funny things during the show. So happy to have you with us tonight, guys. Actually, first let's talk a bit about you. So Ian, what is a production chief a bit?
Hey, well, yeah, I'm working in Eurofound, which is the European Foundation for Living and Working Conditions in Europe. It's an EU agency based in Dublin. So I'm back in Ireland now after 7 or 8 years in Brussels. And Eurofound, well, basically, it's a social rights research agency. So we provide knowledge that allows the European Commission and other policymakers to come up with new ways of living and working in Europe. To improve conditions. So as the production chief, as the publication production manager, I'm basically helping turn social rights research into public policy through digital communications. It's through the research reports that we write. It's through what we put onto our website, what we're doing more and more in terms of data visualizations and making data available for policymakers. So it's a little bit of everything, and it's good work. I like it.
Oh, perfect. Well, you'll tell us a bit about it, I'm sure, in the conversation. And what about you, Louise, Daniel? How does one end up becoming a writer for a Schuman Show? So what's the story there? Louise, maybe to start.
Yeah, I've been involved in the Schuman Show since the beginning, and it actually started during the pandemic. I enrolled on a writing class with the Second City in the US on an online Zoom class, and Kelly and Tristan were there. Kelly being one of the founders of the show. And yeah, the topic of the writing class was writing comedy news, and so it just went from there. They had this show idea, and we made it for a small audience, and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger since then. And Danny joined us very, very recently. So I've actually been sort of off the past couple of months, not in the show. So together, Danny and I have a complete picture of the Schuman Show because he's brand new, fresh blood.
And what about you, Daniel? What brought you to the Schuman Show?
Well, I arrived to Brussels 1 year and a half ago to work in the bubble, basically. And I had done some stand-up comedy before, and actually also some writing courses. Louis, Second City, I did Upright Citizens Brigade, which is the other one big American school of improvisation and sketch writing. And then so when I came here, at some point I met Tristan, who is one of the actors and writers of the Schuman Show, and I got to know the show. I thought it was a really good idea. And at the beginning of this season, they launched like a call for writers, and I sent some sketches. They liked it, and they called me to work with them. So it was great.
Nice. So now let's talk a bit about the news. And there's never a shortage of things happening in the EU, and we're going to discuss a bit things, and I'm sure that it's going to bring some funny bits. So Ian, what's the piece of news you want to start with?
Well, it's the person that's captured a lot of hearts on Twitter in the last few days. You might have seen the Irish football fan who shall we say, interview bombed a conversation with the French football fan to declare pretty much the only bit of French that a lot of Irish people would have was "Je suis un baguette." And as cringeworthy as that is, I think that's a bit of a zeitgeist moment, because also this week we've seen that the baguette being inscribed on UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage list. So it's clearly something that the French are quite proud of. It represents the cultural diversity. You would agree?
I mean, as a French, maybe I'm not the most objective person, but yeah, I mean, I'm even surprised that the baguette was not already in there. So good news for the French. I'm not going to complain about that at all. And I don't know if you saw after that, like Macron was in the US, so he made a big show about it. Like he was, everyone was brandishing baguette left, right, and center. So yeah, definitely in the.
Hello.
Macron he also liked the tweet. In fact, the photo bomber, the video bomber guy.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. So there was news stories around that, but he is showing his appreciation for this ridiculous situation. But look at hey. The baguette's in there, and for those who don't know the cultural heritage, I mean, it's a UNESCO thing, so it's a UN thing. The EU has its own geographic indications scheme, but for the intangible cultural heritage, this is all about recognizing something that makes a country what it is in terms of its culture, in terms of its identity. And as you said yourself, clearly Macron believes in this. I felt he was quite impassioned when he was in Washington. He was there talking about the Inflation Reduction Act and trying to make sure that the EU and the US keep good alliances. But he was cracking a smile. He was saying that this is all the know-how of the French. He was holding up the baguette, and he was saying that basically no one else, others have tried to do it. They've tried to imitate this, but they just can't. That it's basically it's irreplaceable, is the French baguette. And I have to say, I felt it. I felt the pride. I was like, this man.
Is this a modern day retelling of the Let Them Eat Cake Marie Antoinette story? Because we're in a cost of living crisis, and now they're like, oh, don't worry about the gardens of Babylon. You can't afford to go there. No, just have some bread. Don't worry about it. That's fine.
I mean,
Actually,
it's baguettes.
They should start giving out baguettes like the Romans used to do. Just hand out baguettes in the middle of the Bastille or something like that.
Bread and circuses.
Bread and circuses.
Bread and World Cup, no?
yeah, exactly. I mean, again, as a French, I can't criticize that. I mean,
nothing to criticize.
and again, I mean, we were discussing a bit about it before the beginning of the stream, like finding decent baguette in Brussels has always been like a difficult task until recently. Now you can find some decent boulangerie and bakers in Brussels, but yeah, for French people in Brussels for a long time it was a painful process to find decent bread here. So yeah,
it's always a painful process because it's too sharp on the side of your mouth.
I mean, if you're taking them like
English culinary opinion,
but you can eat it sideways also, no?
Is that allowed?
I'm afraid that there, yeah, I mean, you'd be tried. You'd be tried instantly. I mean, they would reinstate the death penalty for that. So be careful.
A French department.
Yeah. And I mean, is that comedy material? Louise and Daniel, do you see a potential for a sketch about that?
It's comedy flower, comedy gold.
Well, we do have a character called the Event Wizard, and he once came up with he had a magic cookie through which he had tamed the cookie, which was GDPR. So we could give him a baguette magique.
That works.
For me, it's it's fascinating how much food plays a role in what unites us as Europeans. Like, actually, we had part of a sketch written on this which later changed, but it's like we may not agree on anything, but on the importance of good food and good drinks, you can build like the whole European idea on this. So yeah.
And that's why Brexit happened.
Yeah, and of course, not to mention the phallic implications of the baguette, which could,
thank you.
Which could.
Again, as a French, I can't comment on that.
Right.
But
the French have lots of GIs. They've like, I mean, in terms of the food, Italians and French are up there in terms of registering their protected geographic indications and their PDOs, their protected designations of origin. They have numerous cheeses and wines and meats. But it's interesting to see there's nothing in terms of breads. There's a couple of little bits and pieces, but in general, it's not something that the French have tried to protect before. Now that's possibly because of the actual production quality of it. So normally with GIs, you have to have, they have to have the ingredients from a certain area and be made in that area to get the highest level of protection. I'm sure you know all of the AOCs and the other versions as well, and
That
in the
being
The
s-
flour will be from elsewhere, won't it? So that's
Yeah,
gonna
but
be
that being said, like in France, I know that there is a label. So you have the baguette, and then you have called the tradition. And the tradition is an actual label, an official label that you have to obtain. And I think it was something that was done at the beginning of the 90s. So I don't know the details of it, but you have to follow a very precise recipe, etc., etc. So yeah, I wonder if there could there would be ground there. But I mean, a bit like Daniel was saying, it's true that food is kind of the one common theme in European identity. I mean, and like you were saying, Ian, like if you look at the trade negotiation, IGP, so the protected food stuff and non food stuff are like the big offensive interest of the EU. It's always insisting left, right, and center on that to protect halloumi, to protect raclette or well, raclette. I don't know if
Halloumi's
it's
a tricky one. That
Champagne.
was a particularly tricky one indeed, the halloumi. But no, that's it, and they get protected in the trade negotiations, and that has a big impact for farmers and for producers from those regions. Of course, it can come with a certain degree of ridicule as well. I mean, if you're making something, we know now that the baguettes need to be made in the baguette region of France. Otherwise, just sparkling bread.
Call it whatever you want.
Yeah. And well then, Louise, what's the piece of news you would like to discuss then?
The piece of news that we wanted to discuss, and I'm very glad that Ian is here because I think he can give us some insights into what's going on, which is the whopping amount of money that the Commission spent on a metaverse party, which was something mentioned in our show in the monologue, because I think it ended up costing around 80 grand per person, not including any drinks because there was no catering because it was not real. And yeah, have you heard what actually has gone on, Ian? Is this just a classic story of like, because there were so many consultants and so many layers, it ended up costing a stupid amount of money, and then that's just the number that's been picked up? But actually it was just sort of a Zoom call, or
Now, I've played around this when it was announced back in October. I jumped in straight away, had a little look, and I'm basically wandering around as a giant paperclip, looking at various different videos being shown to me in lavish circumstances. And look, I mean, I believe that the metaverse, I know that there's a lot of initiatives that the Commission wants to do around virtual worlds next year as well. The price of it, I think it's is it part of the Global Gateway, the wider initiatives to try and drum up a bit of interest and knowledge of what Europe is doing outside of Europe, what the EU is doing outside of Europe. But yeah, we're looking at 300,000 for the development of the metaverse itself. Now, maybe there'll be more parties. Maybe it's not quite 300,000 for the one party. But look, if a party takes place in a metaverse and no one's there to drink a free bottle of bubbly, did it really exist?
no, bubbly. But this is, we also joke that this is the problem. Like, we're always criticizing that the Commission is always a little bit lagging behind, but now they've sort of overcorrected the other way, and they're
Yeah. I mean, actually, like we were discussing the metaverse thing, this very one, like a few weeks ago, like in a previous Eurobubble therapy, and so I went on during the stream because that was the first time I actually heard. I knew about the concept, but I never went on the website, and so during the stream I went on the metaverse, and so I connected and I saw it, and yeah, it was a bit weird because I mean, the discussion we had back then was like, it's not wrong of the Commission to try to exploit any means of communication. It's just like doing a metaverse on something as specific as the Global Gateway. I mean, there's a bit of a disconnect kind of thing. I mean, I wouldn't understand they were doing a metaverse like as part of the promotion of the next European elections. They could make something that direct towards citizen. I could see the potential in that. I mean, you could say it's cringe, etc. But I mean, you can't blame them for trying and exploiting the new tools. I mean, the tools are there. They have to play. They have to play with it. But then, why doing a metaverse on the Global Gateway and doing something where they're supposed to be a beach party? I mean, I really don't get the connection between the two. And on the cost, I was just to finish on comment on the cost, because we had a discussion on my Discord. I have one of my members of my Discord who was a game developer actually, and so we asked him, oh yeah, is it like reasonable, like 400k for something? And I said, oh yeah, actually, it can make sense because then it's, you have to in this kind of things, you develop the engine in house, or is the commission going to develop their own like graphic engine to run the metaverse, or are they going to license it from someone else? And in this case, apparently they got something pretty advanced, and so of course it's going to cost money. So yeah, I think it's a lot going into, a lot of money went into the technicalities, because like even if you have like 5 people only at the beach party, the metaverse is running 24/7, so you need constantly servers running to maintain it online.
So it's bad for the environment too.
So yeah, I mean, kind of weird. I mean, I don't know how they came up with it.
I think it would be nice if like now they just set it up, like they try to reproduce the whole Brussels bubble in the metaverse, so you can be at Plux every day of the week in the metaverse.
Just do the bubble in Minecraft.
Exactly, like meeting people for virtual coffees all the time in there. I mean, eventually, like you could actually reproduce the whole European Union in the metaverse and save a lot of carbon to the atmosphere, maybe.
I mean, the move towards the metaverse and virtual worlds in general is more than just the social aspect of it. So we're looking at here from a communications perspective, which probably didn't work so well. It's been lambasted now because of the DevX editor who joined and wrote about it. But the metaverse in general and the virtual world, I think, is something that is being explored as part of 2023 non-legislative initiatives to say, hey, how do we use this also for like medical interventions, for cultural preservation, for, I don't know, like there's lots of other ways of using it. There's also things like serious games where you can use virtual worlds to learn new skills and whatnot. But it hasn't been a great start. I think we can all say that. You go and you can have a look and you can see what it's like and wander around and you can have a little bit of a dance. I think a lot of the times what happens in these situations is that it's not always thought through. We don't always ask the question, well, why are we going to do this? And it's just, as you said, Louise, maybe it's just like getting in there. We haven't been there early enough in the past, so let's get in straight away now. But the problem is, it's like when you're the first one to a party, there's nobody around, and maybe there'd only be 4 or 5 more people. Who knows? But I do see what they're doing. I do see that it's interesting that they're going this direction. As Mepassistant said as well, that this takes a lot more work behind the scenes. I think, it's taken the commission a long time to get digital natives and actual social media savvy people in through episode procedures and in middle management positions. That's still ongoing. I joined back in 2014 and it was very hard to find anybody who tweeted before, for example. I even had someone ask me, how much does a hashtag cost? So our job back then, I said it was cash only, and pocketed a little bit for myself. Not really, if I was watching. So I think that the situation is that it's good that they'll try and get out there. And I see what the commission is also doing is trying to have this virtual and augmented reality industrial coalition where I think they're working with other kind of VR, AR people within that ecosystem and some other relevant policymakers. And it is a big area. I've been part of other communities and we've had our own little virtual world situations during lockdown. Big question is whether or not that's actually going to stay. Is that going to be a regular feature of our lives from now? I mean, I hear that people getting back to life in Brussels? Are people meeting in real life again? People are going to the Schuman Show.
Pretty much only the Schuman Show, yeah.
No Schuman Show in the metaverse then?
Well,
we don't have 400,000 euros for the moment, but
I mean,
if we ever get our hands on them, probably. I
mean, if there is a voice channel in the metaverse of the commission, technically you could just crush in there and just do the next Schuman Show in the commission metaverse. I mean, it's running, it's paid for.
That would be a nice happening, yeah.
It becomes a public good.
Exactly.
And next year as well, I think that there's going to be this week the Conference on the Future of Europe reaction came out, and there's talk already about there being another citizens panel next year. A couple of citizens panel, one on food waste, I believe, and then another one will be on virtual worlds. So hopefully something will happen between now and then to improve people's perception of how the EU embraces virtual worlds, because this isn't a great start.
Yeah, I mean, it can only go better. I hope. I sincerely hope. But since you just mentioned it, like the conference on the future of Europe. So yesterday, indeed, no, on Friday there was the follow-up event. So what's your opinion on in the end on the conference? Is it living up to the hype or not?
What was the hype? I mean, getting people involved in. No, I think deliberative democracy. I think it's a great initiative, and I really like to see what the Commission has done, building on the old citizens initiative, the various like EU dialogues that were taking place under the Barroso Commission and the Juncker Commission. So it's a step in the right direction, and I was lucky to be at one of the European panels in Dublin recently. I think back in February. So it was genuinely like encouraging to see everybody coming together from different nationalities, different ages, different backgrounds, and different life experiences to get involved in this process. And as somebody who's worked as a facilitator as well, I know that this can have a lot of positive impact, but not if the proposals aren't put into practice. It's the same as any of the European citizens initiatives. You get all these signatures, and at the end of the day, the Commission can still say, okay, we'll consider it, but we don't necessarily have to do it. And I feel like that's probably what's happening at the moment. It'll be a pick and choose scenario, which might then deflate people's desire to get involved in the future. But I don't know what else has come out of it from this week.
Not much. I mean, I watched a little bit on Friday, and it was like. It was a bit funny because the Commission, the Council, and the Parliament say, "Oh yeah, it's great. 90% of what you propose, we're doing it." But I mean, it's not that the citizens came up with it and then they decide to implement it. It's just that it was already in the pipeline, and it just happens to correspond more or less to what some of the proposals were getting. But if you're talking about the tricky stuff, the treaty reform stuff, but then it's going nowhere. So. That's where I think the hype is going a bit to die, because I mean there's a problem of narrative, I think, with the conference, because it was sold to everyone, you can change Europe. What you want, we're gonna do it, which was never going to happen. I mean, the council went in there with literally a gun to their head, so we knew from the get-go that most of the things that citizens will come up with, the council will be no, maybe later. So. I think I'm a bit frustrated by that, because I wanted like the conference to have a positive outcome, and I feel that it becomes a bit of a machine to create frustration, because you're gonna have these people say, okay, thanks for working for 1 year, but we're going to do nothing. Thanks for coming, guys. Vote for the elections.
And that's the EU experience. You're welcome.
Exactly. So.
If I may play the devil's advocate here, I also think there's a great idea, and it's kind of the direction to go forward. But at the same time, Ian said there's people from many different backgrounds, and I'm sure it's true. But also, is it really like it's really the people like us who are interested in the EU who were participating in the?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, I think as an idea it's great, but what is the democratic legitimacy of that? Compared to, for example, the governments of the states, like I think it's great to try to get the people involved, but also we need to be aware of what are the limitations of deliberative democracy. And I think it's a great to get the people who in the future are going to be in the end running the EU from several positions to care about that. I think that's, but indeed the treaty reforms, which is kind of what needs to happen, are
If we hinge this all on treaty reform, which is such a huge topic, we're never going to get anywhere with citizens' involvement. And I think that you do need to go for the low-lying fruit to a certain degree, a low-hanging fruit, and say, look, what can citizens get involved in that it won't really mess up our entire relationship with the wider, institutions of the EU. And there are certain things that they can get involved in, but certainly what we want is to have more involvement in the decision-making process. Not to say that what the people finally say at the end is what absolutely has to happen. But if you look at the better regulation process in general, it says that, all policies should be evidence-based, that they should be, relying on input from stakeholders and citizens. So what that does is it connects the policymakers to the lived reality of find a subsection of people, and I do agree with you that you're not going to have a complete representation of all sides of society, unfortunately. But what it does is it connects them to that reality more and more, which I find that a lot of policymakers perhaps are not aware of. I mean, who knows what's the price of a baguette these days? That's something you need to ask commissioners and MEPs, you know. But certainly, look, I think it's a great initiative. I think it's super to see they used Decidim, which is the Spanish civic tech outlet that was already doing a lot in deliberative democracy and civic tech. I think that there was the city of Barcelona who was using this to bring in lots of really good initiatives around, waste disposal, public property, things like this that really required a lot of input from citizens and from people living in those areas. So the platform that they used was great. The approach was pretty good as well. I mean, maybe it gets more people voting in the parliament elections in 2024. I mean, that would be a good outcome, I think.
Yeah, if anything, yeah, definitely. It's again, I mean, the conference also had like some bad luck because it happened during the pandemic. So like a lot of the events that were supposed to happen in the member state in a different town, like to really connect with the real people, not just the people who are already federalist or hardcore Eurosceptic. Well, they couldn't happen because pandemic. So I mean, they started a bit with a handicap. I mean, to be fair, and I mean, like you mentioned, I think it's a good idea, like to experiment with this kind of thing. I'm just worried that there was a bit of an overpromise on all that, but ultimately.
Well, you also want to keep MEPs in the job as well. We can't completely circumvent them if they're the representatives of people in the member states. Then you wouldn't have had a job.
Exactly. I mean, it's like Daniel was saying. It as a question of legitimacy, not only for the government, but also for the European Parliament, because sure, people can come up with ideas, but if you say, okay, whatever they come up with has to become law, well, why do we bother with the European Parliament then? I mean, I'm sure some people could say, oh well, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but yeah,
some way in the middle.
Yeah, find something to say.
Yeah. Guy was very in verve as usual, doing because he was doing a speech there because he's one of the co-heads of the conference, and so he was pretty in verve and attacking the council as usual. But yeah, I mean, it was a classic Verhofstadt, let's say. Any other bit of news that any of you would like to discuss briefly before we move on?
If you want, we can discuss or is it too long?
Go ahead. Tell me.
So it's something that I think is not news for anybody, but like the whole beef between Elon Musk and the European Commission in general over Twitter and Twitter's new policies. And the latest things I was reading is they had this meeting, Thierry Breton and Elon Musk, who apparently are becoming good buddies because it's already at the second time I see the meet. But then I started seeing all these warnings coming from the Commission, like, we're watching you closely, especially on the issue of misinformation and to what extent Twitter limits it. And I think it's super interesting. And for me, I mean, that is very important, like how social media are an element in elections and everything. But for me, the most fascinating thing is like the direct contact and public contact between the richest guy in the world and president of Twitter and the leaders of the Commission. And it's like, I don't know if it looks very good that that is delivered in this way, like we're watching you and then they get into this public beef. I don't know. I don't know. Honestly,
I mean, it connects for the way it pitches it and the way I mean, it's a question again of storytelling. How do you tell the story? And so far, it's been sold as the Commission standing up to Musk and saying, okay, you can't do whatever you want because otherwise you're out of the game. So it's the way it's being told. It's more about Elon Musk coming to do say no, I'm going to follow the rules. Yes, European Union, I'm going to abide by your laws, rather than the EU going to on its needs say, oh, please, Elon Musk, meet with me and have a talk with me. I think it's more the other way around, I would say.
In this, I wonder how it is, because we are here in Brussels and it's impossible to isolate yourself, but like how is this if at all, discussed in the capitals and when people who are not like in continuous touch with the European Union. And I wonder how it is, because like I don't know. I think it plays also in Elon Musk's role as a rogue guy, and like defying the status quo and everything. So I think it plays
Attention
both
seeker.
ways. It plays both ways. Also, it's good for the commission to play the part of like standing up. But I don't know if it doesn't play. No.
I think the problem is like Breton thought that, like he's a billionaire, I'm a millionaire, we can talk man to man, but he didn't realize that like American billionaires are just like a whole different breed. It's like,
I mean, Tom in the chat is saying that it showed like Breton like orchestrating and showcasing his discussion with Musk is a bit like showing like that no one is above the law, not even like billionaires, and also it's a very Thierry Breton thing. I mean, Breton loves to jump on this kind of news and all that. He's a former CEO, so he loves to meet up with other CEOs. I know these guys, etc. But
and credit to his comms team as well.
Yeah,
I have to say, Breton has been coming out with a couple of great videos over the last year or two as well. He had the Wild West one, with the Digital Market Act and the DSA and the DMA, and even now he has his new his year 3 wrapped up video, which features Elon Musk in there as well. So it's certainly saying, in a way, I like that someone would say you're not above the law and will stand up for the values. And we're talking about, the commission has this whole values-based communication campaign going on at the moment as well. And of course, against the backdrop of war in Ukraine too, it's more of a time than ever to stand up for EU values and stick by them and not be weak-willed. I don't know to what extent people will see the commissioners and the commission's response to Twitter outside of Brussels. Let's be honest, I don't think people really look at it that much. I do see in Ireland at the moment that the head of the Twitter office is putting up an injunction to prevent her losing her job. That's getting a bit of attention here at the moment. In general, I think that the attention that Twitter is getting, I mean, it's not. Look at the Twitter files. Like, this is basically Musk saying that Twitter's too left-leaning. We're going to highlight all the ways in which certain stories were hidden, or what was it, the Hunter Biden situation and all that as well. That's dangerous to me. And when I see that, and one of his first tweets when he became boss as well was to make a stupid joke about the New York Times and calling it a fake news outlet. That's just trying to get attention, and that's just trying to sell yourself in a certain way that is ultimately dangerous for the type of online free speech that Twitter, in my opinion, has been really good at doing over the last few years. I think that they've been really trying to fight for content moderation. What was it, Section 230 in the US, and I can't remember what it is in Europe now, but basically says that any content you put online that Twitter isn't liable for, yet it still has to put in moderation and react quickly to things. And I feel like, from what I saw, they were doing a pretty good job of it, especially around elections. They were tagging things as being edited content. They were flagging dangerous accounts and whatnot. So if you have, look at this.
Look
this
at him.
is bound to happen. I'm honestly.
I mean, I love cats, so he's approved. The cat is approved, so I mean, you get bonus points for that, so that's fine. You can keep the cat with you.
You're allowed. You have the permission. But yeah, I think it's to me it's dangerous to see that sort of how do I say, bias coming into the system. And I know that everything is biased to a certain degree, but if they really want Twitter to be a place for open free speech and the free exchange of ideas, it doesn't bode well to have someone like Musk who basically just wants people to find him funny and like him. It's a 44 billion call for attention.
Yeah, definitely. But again, like, if we look at the communication aspect of that, I mean, if we're cynical, like the whole Musk drama, it's pure gold for the commission, for someone like Breton who is ready to jump on occasions like that, because we just adopted the DMA and the DSS, or the new platform regulation rules of the EU, etc. They could say, okay, we have a live case of what we will not allow or not allow in the EU under the laws. And I know that at least on French TV, Breton is a lot on French TV these days, where he's just going all around about Musk, about the DSN, etc., etc. So it gives him an occasion to say, oh, you see, yes, we're sticking up to Musk, but also, oh, you see, that happens that we're, at the EU, we're doing stuff. Here's a law, is going to be useful for against to keep, let's say, people like Musk under control, etc. So, with a bit of a cynical point of view, it's a good opportunity for the Commission and the EU to take advantage and showcase one thing that happens to be one of the biggest initiatives of the Commission of the past few years. So again, good Gondor Breton's team again on communication. It's true that they've been very good. They've been doing like a Spotify playlist as well, so they've been doing a lot of different things. But have you done already? Are you going to cover in the Schuman Show like the Musk drama and all this?
Well, actually, we've mentioned it in the both shows that we've done lately, but mostly in the monologue format. So when Kelly presents at the beginning, like her monologue on the news, and also I think it's been mentioned in the midday briefing, which is the section Paul Dallison makes a parody, although sometimes it's very close to reality, of the midday briefing of the European Commission, and there they have come up with really good jokes. But it's true that we haven't, to the best of my knowledge, Luis, made a sketch on this yet.
No, we've had a sketch on Twitter in general, which was two people trolling each other basically about EU topics. So we're just slowly descending into a fit of screaming madness about GDPR or something like that. But I think some writers, myself being one of them, don't want to give more sort of airtime to personalities like this, you know. I do a Boris Johnson impersonation and it's like, that's my line, you know, because like I agree
with that. We haven't discussed this previously, but I agree with that line. And also one curiosity that I realized while writing for the show is that it's not so easy to just put a known character in the sketches, because then you need to actually do an impression of them. And so there's a number of known characters or public figures that have appeared in the show, and expanding that line it's possible. We just did it in the last show, but like it's difficult. And then I'm thinking like getting, for example, Elon Musk in the show, and I'm like, who would play Elon Musk? How would you do it? Or Breton, or like, so it would be like, oh my god.
And so since we're talking about the writing, how you do when you have like this kind of news, like it's so big that you cannot not mention it. So how do you like decide? Okay, this bit of news we're going to write a sketch about. This bit of news where we're not going to. So how do you draw the line? Let's say.
Wanna go ahead, Luis?
Well, usually we don't write the monologue until the very last minute anyway, so this is always like our catch-all for everything that got cut and didn't make it into a sketch. But generally there's not many topics that could then be a sketch. So if it's just like something happened, we need to think like, okay, how can we exaggerate this? How can we take, you know, say the Charles Michel and Ursula von der Leyen's sofa gate? Like, how can you make that into a next level of something else? What other characters can we bring in to make it more and more absurd? And, you know, we also like try and have a balance between there's a lot of other things to consider, like, you know, we want to show people working in the Commission, as well as more ridiculous things where somebody represents figuratively the state of Andorra, you know.
Exactly. And I would add that normally the sketches, so we write the sketches for one show normally over the month or the previous month. So normally they are not so bound to like specific news events that happen, but more like longer things. For example, the World Cup, we did one on it, or maybe COP 27, or as we said, like just things that are not news related, but just a day in the life in the Transparency Register or something like that, you know, like, or the DG Justice, or any idea. We had one on IDEA, this Office of the Commission. Yeah. So and then the news facts normally they get either on the monologue or the midday briefing, which are the two things that we fine tune them at the end, and they're much more like timely, I would say. So yeah, it's always this balance, between the trying to be super reacting to the latest news, sometimes from the same day of the show, or doing the longer term things.
You've been going for about a year now, is that right?
Well, we actually started. We had the pilot was September 2021. Yes, I believe.
I think
Wow.
I just heard the other day that maybe you did one in June, but without public or something like that.
Yeah, we had before you could have public events, we had like an invite-only event as like a pilot. So yeah, technically the first one was in July 2021. So it's been going, not much more than a year, but yeah.
Yeah. I keep forgetting what year it is. 2021.
Yeah, same.
Like 4 years ago, wasn't it?
When I said 2021, I was like, wait, was that this year?
I gotta count back the world.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it, I mean, I've been to the Schuman Show once, and I think it was in February this year. I'm not even sure. Like it seems so long ago, but at the same time, like you mentioned, you just started like in July last year. So like okay, but yeah, the situation is pretty like screwing up with the perception of time and all that. Everything seems either very close or very far away, depending on our topic. But yeah, I have to get back to watch a show.
A lot as well for us. I mean, in February we were already in the Lumen Theatre, but I just feel like the show, as we've been going on and we've been getting more resources and people involved, like the level, because I've not been performing in the show for the past 3 shows, and so I got to watch them and also just see the level and how much it's changed since when we first began, even from February. I think it's a huge change, getting writers like Danny involved and having more perspective.
Sounds great. I'm just disappointed you started it like basically the month that I left Brussels to come back to Dublin. I'm like, this is what I used to love, the what was the press junket that used to happen every year? The press review? Yeah. And I was like, oh, why can't we have more of those? And so it sounds like that's what you're aiming at, right? That sort of style.
It's like a new press review every month, basically. I mean, with a bit of a break for Easter and Christmas and you know what, but yeah.
I'm in. Next time I'm over in Brussels, I'll align one of my trips back over to make sure I catch a show.
Yes, whenever you're in the last week of the month, because it's the last Thursday of every month.
Yeah, next one is on the end of February, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'll be around.
Perfect. Which reminds me, I need to write a note somewhere to get to the next show.
Yeah. We'll send you a reminder. Don't worry.
Perfect. Thanks.
I am a consultant. I'm very good at changing.
I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's look at. Okay. So let's move on a bit to. I mean, we're already on later discussion. So let's talk a bit about memes. So Louise, let's start with you. What's the meme you have for us today to discuss?
So my meme is the beans on toast, which I think is in reference, if not homage, to what I consider to be UNESCO World Heritage, and that is English cuisine. I don't know if you've got it up. It's.
I mean, so I showed to people the image. But I mean. Why? I mean, I have to say, I never understood the logic. Okay, I have a piece of bread, I'm gonna put beans on it. I don't get the logic, I have to say.
It's protein. It's protein and logic.
There's also sugar.
Yeah.
It's actually it's a damning indictment on the cost of living crisis and how out of touch famous celebrities such as Jamie Oliver are. And when they say, if you don't have, caviar lying around the home, then you can just go and sauce some local fish eggs. Like, it's making fun of that. And this is me substituting everything else for beans on toast because I'm poor.
I mean, it's true that the all available. It's true that when you're watching like cooking show, you're like, oh yeah, you just do that, as if it were everyone had that. No, I don't even know where to find that. In which shop am I going to find whatever you're using for that? So yeah, I get your point. And there's a bit of a like you were mentioning earlier, like a bit of a Marie Antoinette kind of thing. Let them eat cake then.
This actually reminds me of I think there was a Twitter thread from Sam Morgan, I think, where he like culinary heretics, basically, where he had like a lasagna, pizza.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
it's a long-standing feud between you and and Fortuna about
And
Italian
totally
food.
love it. I totally love it. And the whole, this whole Italian anger with what you put on pizza and all that.
It's called fascism, Danny. It's called food fascism.
But did you know this actually? We were discussing this over dinner yesterday in the classic Brussels setting with one Italian, one Belgian, one French, the whole baguette thing. And I was, as a Spaniard, I was saying, that the problem with Spanish cuisine is that it's not so famous around the world because it's difficult to make it from scratch if you don't have the ingredients. Whereas you can make a pizza. I mean, you can more or less make a pizza of whatever. So I was telling you, Italians, you shouldn't complain about people putting weird things on pizza because that's what makes your food so famous. That anyone anywhere in the world can make their own version of it. I don't think it works with the English cuisine though.
But it does work with the English language because
yes, fair.
In a similar way, you can't complain about people having accents because that's why English is the lingua franca over French. Sorry.
Fair.
Well, I'm going to cut this part because otherwise Katrina is going to show up at my house and bang on the door. But no, I get your point. I mean, especially if we're trying to it's true that it's been a bit difficult, maybe as an English person, to defend culinary specialties when you have French people, Italian people, Spanish people around the table.
My belief is that we should not when we compare cuisines, let's compare with like. I want to compare peasant food with peasant food because beans on toast is peasant food for my people. And if all you've got going is like a potato and stone soup, it doesn't matter if you've got quattro formaggio. For the rich people, I want with like.
That's fair.
One Spanish thing that's caught my eye recently, Spanish food. It's a turrón de Alicante, and not just the fact that it's a turrón de Alicante, which is like a nougat confectionery. Yeah. It's the weird tradition around Christmas. With the turrón de Alicante. Are you aware of this, Danny?
That is mostly eaten on Christmas, or is there something beyond?
There's something else. So how they get so basically the turrón de Alicante, it's placed in this sort of this log that looks like a little creature, and the idea is that you fill it up in advance of Christmas, and then it's some weird. You basically hit it with a stick until it shits itself.
Okay. Yeah.
Christ.
That is it. So basically, it's you bash the little log creature so that the turrón de Alicante falls from its bowels, and you then consume it.
I had seen that. I had seen that.
Like a piñata.
Like a piñata, exactly. Like an older version of a piñata.
Oh my.
I mean, I know there's a couple of weird Spanish traditions with goats being thrown out of churches and all sorts of things, but this one.
I mean, we've been dunking a bit on English cuisine, but Irish cuisine. I mean, apart from whiskey, what do you have in terms of Irish cuisine?
It doesn't matter. The point is that we don't claim that it's good. Nobody ever says that it's we just kind of go, oh, we'll take it. We'll take whatever's going, One thing we do have that the French don't, we have our own GI when it comes to bread. We have a thing called it's like a bap. It's a blah. It's called a blah, a Waterford blah, and it's a floury, fluffy bread type of thing, kind of like a burger bun that's not been cut in half.
Okay.
In the middle. And so we're ahead on that one.
Okay.
So.
Well, okay, fine. I'll give you that. I'll give you that one.
The Irish are inviting you to eat it. Literally.
Try it out.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay, it does look nice.
Yeah, I will definitely look it up. Well. Ian, actually, let's talk about your own meme. So what do you have for us?
We have a meme from the indefatigable Pablo Perez Armenteros, who has been at the center of EU communications for a very long time, but he hasn't aged a day. And so he has shared this one. I don't know if people can see it right now.
Yeah, I put it on screen so they can see it, yeah.
It's it's useful for someone like me who's kind of outside the bubble at the moment. I'm trying to keep my EU fix from Dublin. But here we have basically the communications in the EU at the moment with the Mastodon, with the metaverse we've already discussed, and with the sort of 3 years in office tweets and promotions. And we mentioned a little bit about Breton's video, which pretty good. But in general, yeah, I like this little meme. I think it's kind of summarizes the situation quite well. One thing we haven't discussed now so far is Mastodon.
That was going to be my question. Like, do you see Mastodon as emerging as a thing, at least as in EU policy or EU
I
bubble?
think that people, like to talk about it being a thing, and certainly, this the idea of a fresh start, I think, is quite appealing to a lot of people as well. When it comes to thinking, oh, I can rebrand myself now on a different platform, and in fairness, I do think that the structure of Mastodon, once you understand how it works, is the way to go. It is a proper decentralized social network, and if we're looking at our DAOs and our everything else in Web 3.0, this is the way to go. But it's not Twitter yet. And I think that there was a push at first, and people were saying, oh, look at me, I'm on this EU policy server, join me. And we did, and people are there, but there is a learning curve to it. And whereas a lot of people said, well, I'm getting rid of my Twitter account now, I don't think they have.
I don't think so either.
I think we're still holding out for all the Breton Musk drama to unfold there, because that's what it is these days, It's just a place for drama.
Is the Schuman Show on Mastodon yet?
No.
No. Really, you're careful. You're gonna miss the trend.
Yeah. We like to show up at Spanish time to parties. That's where we're at. We'll keep it.
Nice save.
Technically, in real life, like, that's as non-digital as it is. Like, we have literal physical in-person shows. Like, we're hardcore traditionalists, very, very conservative group of people with conservative traditional values. And
okay, I'm going to clip that and put that on Twitter all around. Schuman Show goes full Musk.
That's a good thing. Like, people do need to come physically to the show to be able to roast us and complain after. Otherwise, they're missing the fun. They're missing the.
Do you have that many people like complaining of the show?
No.
Not that many that I'm aware of. No. We got the famous Malta complaint.
We will never forget. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Luis. You know which best.
So we have this recurring sketch, which is the assembly of the European Microstates Association with Andorra, Liechtenstein, Vatican, San Marino, and they, in the story, they get an application from Malta who wants to join, and so obviously they're furious because it's too big, and they cannot accept it, and so they say, "Fuck Malta," and so we got a complaint that, like, while it is justifiable for all of these reasons to say fuck Malta, misogyny, freedom of the press, blah, 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 you did not give those reasons, so you don't get to say fuck Malta. It's a bit like, I can say it, you can't say it. And it was like, we couldn't really, we never actually responded to the message because we couldn't find a way to not be condescending in replying it was a joke for a comedy show. It's like, there's no easy way to say that, like, it was a joke.
When it's self-evident, no? But yeah.
You literally paid for jokes, and we gave.
Yeah, well, is there the famous debate about context, right? When you make this is very, very, but yeah.
And so, did you keep the Malta joke afterwards, or did you remove it?
Oh no, Malta comes back every time the microstates come back.
In the last show, we did a microstates sketch, and yeah, definitely there was.
So in a way, it's a form of response.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
This person wasn't particularly open to dialogue, though, because they immediately unsubscribed from our newsletter. It happened within 2 minutes of receiving the email, and that was also where we were like, I don't think this relationship is salvageable.
I don't think he's coming back. I think we lost him.
So is that the most controversial moment you've had in the Schuman Show so far?
Yeah, which I think is pretty good going.
Yeah, that's pretty tame, I would say. It's pretty tame. But yeah, I mean, just to finish on the Mastodon thing, I mean, I have to say I opened the Mastodon account, say, okay, just in case, because let's not put all our eggs in the same basket. So I use it a little bit like for promoting stuff. I put my memes on that, etc. But I haven't gone around like to really like dig into the servers, look at what people are saying, etc., etc. So I would have to at least try to see if there is something. But I have to say, like, Twitter is really like my my home.
I hold out hope that it can be a place where the dialogue is maybe a little bit more civil, and you can kind of have a less of a, I don't know, bitter sort of conversation and fights going on, but that's just going to take time. I know that they're individual servers as well, and they'll have their own rules and for moderation and whatnot. But again, I do think that if anybody is in any way interested in the future of social networks, this is an interesting one to learn, to see how it operates, to understand a little bit about it being decentralized. And the fact is, nobody can buy it. When Breton finishes as a commissioner, he gets a notion because he's had a few chats with Musk, and he maybe wants to, go in and swoop in and buy up Mastodon. He's not going to be able to.
Yeah, can buy one server.
Can I ask? Maybe I think this is probably the most basic question, but in a decentralized platform, how is the content moderation question addressed?
It's via the servers themselves. So
legally speaking, yes, it's the server is the server owner that is responsible and so liable for what happened on this server. So that's the thing. I mean, if you take like a piece of legislation like the DSA would have to apply to each server individually. So yeah, that's another challenge, and you could also say a limitation in terms of platform regulation, because of course, like for now, probably Mastodon is something that is a bit more quiet in the sense like non as aggressive in terms of public discourse. But you could perfectly imagine that, and I'm sure it exists, that you have like pretty extreme servers on Mastodon with people who are batshit crazy in there. And so how do you how do you moderate that? Even if like the way Mastodon works, it limits the outreach. It's more difficult for something to go viral on Mastodon because every server is individual and independent. But yeah, then it becomes a bit more challenging, let's say, to because you demultiply the number of actors.
Yeah, like this is similar to Discord in a way. You use Discord a lot as well. So it's the same concept, right?
Yes. That being said, the servers are hosted by Discord itself. So you still have. I didn't check like the minutia, but there is still a more or less centralized. The servers are individuals, but then it's still the infrastructure is still centralized with Discord as a company. So you still have a bit of that. You could still say, okay, Discord as the owner of the infrastructure, you have this kind of responsibility. Which on Mastodon, as I understand things, that would not be the case, because the Mastodon thing is just like the software. Let's say the connection between the different servers, but
yeah. And there's various ways to access the Fediverse as well. It's not just Mastodon. So
exactly,
servers would exist and can be accessed from different points. I think this is when it gets a bit confusing and mind melting for people. So I wouldn't be really holding my breath for a lot of the institutions and kind of slower adopters to jump on this too quickly. Maybe they should have focused more on that than on the metaverse, but let's see.
Yeah, because I mean, from an institutional point of view, what you want is you have your content reach the maximum number of people, and here with Mastodon, I mean, you have a hard cap. I mean, the thing is designed to limit actually the spreading, the virality of content. So that's a bit counterintuitive for an institution.
It's good for data protection as well, though. That's true. There are stronger data protection rights in there as well, and so that's possibly something that will help it grow a bit more. But as it stands, Twitter's still the place for EU bubble gossip.
Does your agency have a Mastodon?
No.
Eurofound? No,
not yet. There are a few mirrors in place whereby the content from Twitter is being mirrored on several Mastodon accounts. I think it's the data protection service of the EU that's running that, because it has its own instance. But no, not yet. We'll explore it. But again, I think that with any, having worked in the European Commission before and with different offices, different DGs there, and different commissioners. It's a case of kind of asking yourself why first, and having that conversation like, what do you actually want to achieve? What can communication help you to? What goals can it help you achieve? And then figure out, should you be there or not. I'm very happy that the commission is not on TikTok. As far as I'm aware, it's not. I don't think it's quite the place for. I mean, if you have the team in place, you know, and in fairness to the commission, the social media team has been doing so well since when I joined. It was very small. I think they've got a lot more people in there now. They have a whole graphic design group working with them as well. So there's a lot of capacity there. So they could, and they do know how to, you know, change content for different platforms. But the question is, should you? You know, is that the place?
I mean, it depends. Initially, I was. I know that Pablo, since we started this conversation from a meme from Pablo. I know that Pablo has very strong views on the use by institution of TikTok. He doesn't want them to use that. But like the more I see content from TikTok and people innovating in a bit in the way of doing things, I think there is a slot to be used. Like you can do like still like something that is informational on TikTok. It's a shorter format, but like if you have a commissioner like Breton or like Vestager who are pretty okay with on social media, they could do things like that. I mean, we have to check, but I'd be surprised if Breton doesn't have a TikTok account. I mean,
is it not more of an issue of security because it's Chinese owned?
There is some of that in there as well. Yeah. But I think maybe we'll go with that and we'll say it's not a creative limitation issue. Yeah. But no, I think if it's personalities doing it, then that's it. One of the biggest challenges any institution or any faceless organization has in this situation is that it's hard for people to follow and to, you know, for you to have a right tone of voice when you're not an actual person. You're a logo. Where if you're an MEP or a commissioner, it's much easier to, you know, have your own personality come through and, you know, transfer that across different platforms.
True.
And there are some great examples of politicians, particularly in the US, who are using TikTok to try and get people to, you know, register for voting and show up for elections and whatnot. But it takes a certain, you got to put yourself out there a little bit.
Yeah, true. You have to take risks. That's always the problem.
I'd love to see Dombrovskis on TikTok.
It would be amazing. It would be absolutely amazing.
That's what I want to see.
Daniel, what's your own meme? I think it's no, that's the.
Yeah.
Okay, I have the Merkel one. Angela Merkel high running gift wrap.
A Christmas gift for everyone who hasn't seen it. And for me, it's like a reminder of a simpler time, you know, when Merkel still believed in a peace in Russia and ironing gift wrap. I read somewhere that this was part of a campaign to reuse things, something like that, like some environmental consciousness, which was also kind of like the way we looked at ecology back in the day, you know, like you gotta save gift wrap and all of that. But it's just so funny. It's just so funny to see her. And I would love to see like the before and the after, no? When she left office and like.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the picture, like I wonder when that dates back from. Like, I don't think she was chancellor back then, or maybe like the very early days of being
Merkel
chancellor.
Has a lot of these really interesting pictures when she was campaigning as a younger politician. Like, I remember seeing one with like some sailors in the north of Germany, something like that. So I don't know, like she has pretty interesting pictures of her early days. Yeah.
Wait, does this actually work?
I haven't tried.
I never even thought of trying, you know.
But that's like a thing that like, maybe this is a growing up thing, but like grandmas would be like, don't rip the wrapping paper, save it, we can use it again.
My mom always says that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's just Merkel, isn't it? Man, I mean, she's everybody's motif.
It's also like when you have too many secret Santas, this is another topic that when you have too many office and friends secret Santas, you gotta start reusing the paper, you know, because otherwise.
And the presents.
Presents.
Exactly. regifting. Yeah. You can get one people's secret Santa and give it to the next, and you know, it's just
that's a circular economy.
It's just a chain.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, reminds me, the wrapping paper thing reminds me of. Sorry to go back to the show, but in the last show we did an interview with Santa Claus, and we discovered that Santa Claus is actually anti-woke and doesn't believe in climate change, because he's very interested in the business of wrapping paper, plastics, one single-use plastics, and all of this. So our version of Santa Claus is very much in favor of wrapping paper.
And
Interesting.
Not GDPR either.
Yeah, no. I mean, GDPR
True.
and especially customs regulation are very, very problematic. Also, the platform workers directive for the elves.
The right to be forgotten, difficult for.
Oh my God, no! The right to be forgotten. Don't even talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's true. That's when you think about it. Yeah, indeed, that's a good one. I go back to you, Louise. More about the anecdote. So you were mentioning earlier, like the sketch about the insular kind of organization, and you were saying that you discovered apparently that the reality catched up to the comedy. So can you tell us a bit the story?
Yeah, I mean, I've already mentioned the concept of the microstate sketch that is a recurring sketch. But in the last show, last Thursday, somebody wrote to us after the show to say, actually, my grandfather was involved in a microstates association, and here's a picture of them meeting in the 50s. And it just, even down to like that there's 5 people in the picture.
Yeah, I showed the pictures like so people can see it.
There is such similar chairs. The only difference is like we did manage to have one woman. They're all men. Yeah.
And we had the Pope also, much better.
But he's not a pope. He's just a cardinal.
Yeah. Okay, he's representative.
Yeah, he's just a representative.
His Holiness.
He only speaks in Latin throughout the whole thing.
The one thing I'm wondering, like looking at the real picture, so you have the 5 people like sitting around, and then you have like a guy uniform behind. Like who the hell is that?
Yeah.
The Swiss Guard.
The Swiss Guard? No. Don't tell me it's really a Swiss Guard. Come on.
No, it's just an old school bouncer, maybe bodyguard.
Yeah,
but we just thought that was amazing. And this is not the first time either that people have just said like, no, that's actually how it happens. Like, no, this has definitely happened to me, because I think it's that saying, isn't it, that like reality is usually stranger than fiction.
I think that is what many people. So obviously in the public, in the audience, we have a lot of people working in the institutions. I think especially commission from what I've gathered and I talk around. And many times the reaction that we've gotten is like, you'd be surprised how much it is like that in the last show we did a sketch about trilogues, and in our imagination trilogues, because there's a secretive it's a state secret, well, sort of, and in our imagination it was a magic game, Magic the
Gathering. Yes,
the Gathering, the Magic the
yeah.
Gathering thingy. So, and then people were laughing very hard at some of the things, and it was clearly like,
yes, I could see it.
Some of those people they had been in the trilogues.
I've been in trilogues, and yeah, I see. I've done my share of trilogues, and yeah, I can see the I could see it happening. Like I think I even have I have a meme I haven't released yet, more or less about this idea. Like there's a lot of things. Like the big thing on trilogues is like commission. In many cases, the one coming up with the proposals, and so they always have like the main proposal, and they have like 3 or 4 different backups, so that they anticipate like the arguments. And when the parliament say, "Oh yeah, I don't like your proposal because this," and the commissioner say, "Ha, here's my proposal, my counter proposal." So there's a bit of a Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh, it's very funny.
Do you have anybody in the Schuman Show team that's worked in the commission or currently works there or in the institutions, or you have other insider sources for your background knowledge?
I think Kelly worked in the parliament.
Kelly worked in the commission as well.
I think she did. She worked parliament and commission. She told me.
And I mean, I did my internship I did the stage in the commission. I think most people did. And one of our actors is also working at the commission, but not in a policy role.
Okay, maybe you get more people coming to you with new ideas now as well. The more popular the Schuman Show gets, other people coming in saying, this would make for a great sketch.
Do you get contribution from people like writing to you, you should do a sketch about this or that?
Well, definitely they tell you, they tell you. But some of these things are because even if we wouldn't work in the institutions, we worked in the bubble. Like I'm a consultant. There's lobbyists as well. So it's not that it's vox populi, but this is the thing that you pick up from your friends, the work, or just your imagination. But of course, yeah, after the show, normally people come talk to us, we chat a little bit, and you always end the show with new ideas for the next, just from the conversations that you have with the audience, because everybody.
But this is something that did make me laugh, because I recently rewatched Seinfeld, and just like, it's an ongoing gag that everybody comes up to him and they're like, do you know what you should do? You know what's a good joke? And it's just like, now, like, you go to parties and you meet people and they're like, oh yeah, I've seen that show. Oh, you know what you should do? And you're like, yeah, go on then.
I mean, at least you're not doing the joke. The Schuman Show is a show about nothing.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's about tedious detail and bureaucracy.
I can only appreciate Seinfeld in meme format now. I don't know. I've tried to go and watch the whole thing all over again, but it doesn't.
It has aged a bit.
As me, when I see memes, yes. So that's how I like to consume Seinfeld now, purely through memes.
Yeah, I think I did watch I watched Seinfeld only once. Like I did the entire. I watched all of it. I think maybe during the pandemic. I watched everything. It's true. I mean, it's funny, but it's true that it has aged a little bit.
Oh yeah.
What about the TV show The Parliament?
Oh, the Parliament.
You've done a follow along with that, haven't you?
Sorry.
You did watch that live as well, did you?
Yeah, I did this thing indeed where I got the authorization from the channel to like watch it live and do a live commenting to explain what is true, what is not true. I watched only season 1. I haven't watched yet season 2. I need to watch it, but like I think it's good in the sense that okay, it's not like a picture perfect. You could say you could nitpick a lot of things, etc. But that's not the goal. But I think it does a great job as giving an excuse to talk about the EU, about Parliament, and introduce people to a lot of concepts and practices that they don't know. Like the shows, like they explain things like a compromise amendment, what's a rapporteur, what is a shadow rapporteur, and they do some, like they introduce what is a political advisor, these kind of things, which are, if you're outside of Brussels, normally you have never heard of the position, like compromise amendments. Maybe you can guess what it is, but it's not something that is very good, very very well known. And the show does a good job of explaining that way. It's like the sketch about like where you have Iman, so the guy who is playing the committee secretariat, where he's explaining what is a compromise and how you do a compromise. That's perfect. That's exactly how you should explain. Say, okay, you see a sausage? Well, that's a sausage. I care about whether the sausage is round. You care about what's inside the sausage, and that's pretty good. And I think it does a good job, because when I prepare like interviews, so usually what I will do is I go on Reddit and say, okay, I'm interviewing this guy. Do you have a question for him, etc. And when I do with French MEPs, almost every time I will have someone ask him whether it's being an MEP is like the show Parliament. So I think he did a good job at
resonating with people.
I think it's resonating with people. People do catch up with it, and they enjoy it. Like I know that at the beginning, like there was a lot of people like in the bubble thinking, oh yeah, but what is this thing? They're going to make us look like stupid people, etc., etc. But I think like people like they see that it's a parody. I mean, like the character of Sammy as a parliamentary assistant, he would be fired within the first 5 minutes. Let's be honest with it. I mean, I would have him even as an intern. I would kick him out of the office within 5 minutes. Like for the MEP, you could argue that he's like some real MEPs, but yeah, it's I like the show. I think he does a good job at like explaining a bit and giving a context, which actually is not what they wanted to do initially. Like I did an interview with the creator of the TV show. I said, oh yeah, you wanted to do I asked him at some point, you wanted to do a show about Europe, etc. I said, oh no, actually no, I don't care about whether it's in the Parliament or the Commission or whatever. I just want to do good comedy, and I think that in the Parliament there was material to make good comedy, but it could have been in a police station or whatever. It's just I didn't want it to do something about Europe. It's just there.
I think this and it goes to something that I think Luis I would agree that the Schuman Show also tries to go at is like the lack of, the media, the European media environment, so to
Yeah.
speak, and Parliament. I like it as well. The second season, not so much, I have to say, but I still like it. But it goes a little bit to this, there's so many political comedies in America, in the UK, you got the thick of it, and in Europe, what do we have? Well, at least now we have Parliament and the Schuman Show.
Yeah.
So I think as a first, it's really good. Like,
Yeah.
of course, many things can be improved, but
But it left like some MEPs,
Really?
let's say, conflicted. Like because I asked like MEPs, okay, do you like Parliament, etc. And I heard both. I had some MEPs, oh yeah, it's great, I love it, etc. And other were like, actually, no, I don't like it. It makes us look like stupid. Why do we have to yes, you could. It's good that we have TV shows about the EU, about the Parliament and all that. But you could make a serious TV show. You could make something like Baron Noir. You could do something like a House of Cards. Why does it have to be like a comedy that makes us look like stupid people? That's not serious, etc. So
they would rather
Because it was
be
written by a
portrayed-
comedian.
they would rather like have something like Baron Noir, something that goes a bit deeper.
Be portrayed like the House of Cards guy, which is basically a psychopath.
Yeah, basically. I mean, again, you can make a character like him.
If you tried to do a serious House of Cards style show about the European Parliament, it would still end up being funny because people would be like pushing people, on the metro, in front of a metro for like not voting on their compromise amendment. It's still funny.
And with political series, you have always this. You have the school of the West Wing, so you can do the West Wing.
Yeah.
Or you can do like politics is actually, which is basically a succession of mistakes, and misunderstandings. And I think that's nice. Like I prefer that. I mean, I like the West Wing as well, but I think actual politics is much close. I mean, you can say better because you work in the Parliament, but it's much more comedy than drama, I would say. Although
It definitely. I mean, you have a bit of both. Like sometimes when I hear stories like from colleagues. Like sometimes you're like, but what kind of scheme is that? Like it's borderline like actual House of Cards with MEPs saying, oh yeah, he did that, but he was planning things. And you're like, really, really? And all the time, like it's actual comedy. I mean, I started MEP assistant because of that. So
Yeah.
But yeah, let's move on actually to the final part of the show, which is the carte blanche. So I will ask each of you to discuss like a topic of your choice, and that's it. Ian, let's start with you. So what's the topic of your carte blanche today?
Well, I was thinking, were we talking about was it relevant for Parliament what Louise and Danny were going to say? Did you have one?
Well,
Carte
we
blanche?
had thought, it's also a never-ending discussion
yes,
in
right.
the EU, but the one-seat problem of the Parliament, or like, why is the Parliament split in, well, really three, but let's say 2 seats, no? And what would it take to take it out of Strasbourg, or what would it take to take it out of Brussels? No.
And when are they going to pay the Schuman Show to go to Strasbourg? Because
the
we have
Strasbourg
to-
hotel as well. Yeah, we need to go there. Yeah, actually.
To be fair, I'm impressed that no MEP has thought about, or political group has thought of inviting you to do a show in the Parliament, because that would be super easy communication for them to do.
Well, luckily we know a guy who worked in the Parliament for a long time and now has a successful Twitter account.
Yeah, I mean, again, unfortunately, I don't have, I can't decide what kind of events are happening in the Parliament. I mean, I'd like myself to do an event in the Parliament. Like next year is going to be the 10 years of MEP assistant, so I'd like to do an event in the Parliament
nice.
for that.
Congrats.
But yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that no one thought about it.
Well, one of our sponsors, the European Cultural Foundation, did invite us to do a show in Amsterdam for a lot of people working in EU affairs across Europe. So some people do recognize.
Nice. Well,
Stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean,
everything will come.
I'll see. Like, if I manage to do like the event next year, like for the 10 years of MEP assistant, I'll see if I can sneak in. Okay, let's do like a mini Schuman Show in the Parliament. I'll ask Kelly to see if it's feasible or whatever.
We need to stay in touch on this.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, let's go back to the topic actually you wanted to talk about, which is the Strasbourg seat. So let's do a quick poll. Who is in favor of the Strasbourg seat? Who wants it to go back to Brussels? Danny, start.
Okay.
You put
Well,
the topic on the table.
I would say it definitely for me doesn't make any sense that you have like what is it 2,000 people traveling once a month from Brussels to Strasbourg paying all that. We are all aware of the political reasons why that is the case, and that is not going to change, but I still think it makes no sense.
I think as well, like, how long have we been doing this route, Brussels to Strasbourg, and still we don't have like a properly functioning European railway system? I'm like, if you can't even do that, let's just pack up, no? Like, because you get your own private train, it's like it all becomes like a big allegory for the European problem.
I'll tell you the story about the trains after, but yeah, keep going.
Well, and also because Brussels Christmas market was voted #1 in Europe. So literally, what's the point in Strasbourg? It's only ever been put at Christmas. So it's over. Désolé, yeah.
I think there's a simple solution. I agree that you don't need people traveling all the time as well, but also people want to go somewhere else for it, I suppose. So let's put it in the metaverse.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
We can have a beach party. MEPs have a beach party, listen to some good tunes, and
what could possibly go wrong in terms of communication? What could possibly go wrong?
They could manage to make it even more expensive than getting everybody to Strasbourg,
Yeah, but I mean, I can see the schemes, because then MEPs would say, yeah, but okay, we still should be entitled to our to the compensation, like that the MEPs get 300 euros whenever they go to the parliament. Say, yeah, but even if it's the metaverse, I'm still showing up to the parliament, so I should get that.
And you need to buy your metaverse clothes and all of this and the food.
Exactly, and the real story beyond that, the Committee of the Regions did that. The members of the Committee of the Regions during the pandemic, when they were meeting online, the members of the Committee of the Regions said, yeah, but we still want our compensation for attending online the meetings of the Committee of the Regions.
Yeah. I can see a meme there, like people discussing the European Parliament. This figure that looks to one side like the Committee of the Regions, while people are discussing where to move the Parliament, and like praying that nobody thinks about the utility of the Committee of the Regions.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys discuss the Parliament. Go ahead.
Exactly. I mean, to answer my own question, so on the Parliament, difficult question because I'm French. But I mean, for me, I do see the arguments. I do see the arguments against Strasbourg. I completely see them. It becomes a bit absurd, etc. But for me, I mean, it's a moot point. For me, it's a useless debate because we know it's not going to change for very simple reasons. I mean, France will never give up. They objectively, politically speaking, whether you have a right wing, a left wing, a center government in France, they have no reason whatsoever to ever let go of the parliament in Strasbourg for economic reason, for political reason, for symbolic reason, etc. And even if they wanted to, I mean, what would you offer in exchange? Because I mean, they can't give up the parliament like this and get nothing in exchange. Some say, oh yeah, we could. Some are saying, yes, you could open like a European university. You could put a EU agency in that building. Yeah, sure, but I mean, you're trading the seat of one of the three main institutions, the only one that has democratic legitimacy, and you exchange that for an agency that doesn't fly politically.
But French people are European taxpayers too, like. And not all of them are hotel owners in Strasbourg.
True. I mean, that's a conflicting things. Like in French people would say, yeah, it's absurd. Why are they moving? It's a gravy train, and all that. So of course, in French people, you will get the same argument. But if France was to give up the seats, the way it would be translated politically, the way French people would understand that move is not, oh, France is doing a move like for climate change, like Tom is saying in the chat, or to save taxpayer money. The way they would interpret that is, oh, France is giving up power. France is giving up influence. It's a symbol of France losing its status again within Europe. And France, like the UK, like former big empires, we have a bit of a complex when it comes to our own place in the world, our power, etc. So, especially the French, we never quite digested the fact that we are, let's say, a second-rate power now. We still live in the illusion that we are the big power. I mean, it's France, so I mean, how could we not be?
I was just gonna say it's the exact. It sounds a lot like the British because
Exactly.
exactly. I'm super petty because I'm powerful, but I'm not actually.
It's definitely a bit of that. So politically, people would see that as a slap in the face.
Well, guys, as a Spaniard, I can tell you, just wait 100 years more, and you will get over it. You know, like eventually it happens. You know, you let go, and there are some people who are still nostalgic, but it will happen.
Yeah, Tom is remind me a quote. I don't remember who's the quote from. If it's Jean Monnet or Schuman saying the EU is a union of small states and states that don't realize they're small.
Indeed.
Ooh, I like that.
I don't remember if it's Monet or Schumann who made this one. I have it in my list of quotes.
Oh, that's very nice.
I have to say, I have a solution that it could fix the problem. Actually, two historical problems, and you can let the parliament in Strasbourg, but then you can make Strasbourg a pan-European city and share it with the Germans. That as you know, they are very keen on that city historically, and so that way, make it like the first pan-European city of Europe, and then stay the parliament there.
I mean, I think someone you're joking, but I think it's someone made this proposal. Like, it does ring a bell. I think I read something about that, making it a European city or something like that.
But also Brussels as well, right? I mean, because who could
convince the Belgians?
No, for sure. And I'm rethinking of what you said, Louise, about the train thing. So, story time. Now we are since 2008, so the last time France had a presidency, we have the Thalys. So there's a special train that runs only for the plenary session that goes from Brussels to Strasbourg and Strasbourg to Brussels. That only runs during these sessions, and only people from the bubble can go. Exactly. And so it was made because the French wanted to support the Strasbourg 6, etc. But before that, you had to take regular trains. And it was an absolute nightmare. Like, I don't know if you... when I started as an intern in the parliament, I wasn't allowed to go on the fancy Thalys train, so I had to go through the regular trains, and we called it the choo-choo. So it was the train that goes from Brussels to Strasbourg through Luxembourg, and it was a train that was going early, was at least 2 or 3 hours late every time. So I would take my train at 7 in the morning, and I would arrive at 2 or 3 in the afternoon in Strasbourg.
Oh, I can beat that. I was on that train for 12 hours once. 12 hours.
I think the worst I did was 10 hours.
Did you get locked in the bathroom or something? What was going on?
We just stopped in Luxembourg, and we just stopped for like 4 hours for no reason.
I think the worst I did was 10 hours. With the Thalys, ironically, but... because they got a power cut, and so we were like stuck literally in the middle of the French countryside, like for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it was to the point where they had to actually open the train, because since they didn't have any electricity, they couldn't like have the air conditioning or whatever. So for security reasons, they had to open the train so that fresh air could go in, because it was like in June or July or something like that. So it was getting very hot. But yeah, that was not the most pleasant trip.
No, we just had the European Year of Rail as well last year, wasn't it? And I don't know if anything has really improved since then. I've seen a few more night trains are available to go as far as Vienna now. Yeah. I don't know if anybody's ever taken any of those. I'm seeing more and more train transport, which is great, and we need it.
I did a night train between Brussels and Munich. I think it was okay. It was okay, but I was I think it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, I had an MEP who works on trains in the parliament, and he was telling me that actually, like, one big issue, something that makes absolutely no sense, is that indeed we don't have a unified railway system, but it's even to the point where you have different standards for the trains per member state, meaning that in some, like, if you take a Polish train, you would not be able to ride on the French railway system, which was kind of absurd. I mean, I knew that for instance, when I was covering news about the war in Ukraine and how can the EU help about getting the grain out of Ukraine to distribute outside the world, and there was discussion. Okay, let's just put it on train and go from Ukraine to Poland and then the rest of Europe, and say no, actually that's not possible because the size of the rails is not the same in Poland and Ukraine. So they would have to the train would have to run to the Polish border, then be transferred to a Polish train, and then run back. Since of course that's not feasible when you're moving hundreds of tons of cereals at the same time. So it's
if only there was a sui generis supranational organization that could harmonize regulations on this.
If only. I don't get why nobody came up with that idea. I mean,
but the trains are a very old thing. You know, for example, in Spain is I think relatively well-known fact that the wide of the train tracks is wider than in the rest of Europe. So both in Spain and Portugal, the moment you cross from the Pyrenees, the wide of the train tracks changes, and the whole of the train system in Spain is built on that wide. So of course you cannot use, not only you cannot use French trains, also you need to change in the border.
Wow.
So I mean, I guess that, I'm not an expert, at some point they adapted them. But yeah, they started building in the 19th century, and I think it was because the elevation in Spain is quite high. It's a quite mountainous country. But then, of course, the moment you want to unify the network in Europe, you had all your trains built already, or your train tracks built. So yeah, you have a problem.
Wow, it's really that's nuts. And on a slightly related note, you were talking about the width of a train track as well. In Ireland, the Irish word for road is boher, or you have a small one called a bohreen, and both of these terms come from the word bow, which means cow, and it basically meant how many cows could you fit on that width of road. So a boher is a bigger road, and a bohreen is a smaller one because you can get fewer cows on it.
Is that part of the imperial system, or is it part of the imperial system?
I don't think.
Oh my gosh!
I don't think it applies to the rail system as well. If it's like a smaller train or more trains than others. But
Luis, how many cows is a yard?
A cow is 1.5 yards.
Okay. Depending if they are sacred cows or not. But,
and that's 16 hands or 575 inches.
Oh my god.
I mean, you have these kind of things like for everything. Like I know that in most of Europe, you're driving on the right side because back in the Middle Ages, when knights were crossing each other, they wanted their left side protected with a shield in case it was an adversary. So that's why in most countries, you're driving on the right side.
Well, we just didn't fight, so I suppose we just kind of said we weren't smart about it. Maybe that's why we're on the other side.
You cheers.
One way or the other. I'm not sure how it works, but I tell you what, as a man who's now living on an island again, I miss the option of taking a train to a different country. So don't take it for granted. Get on the trains, go somewhere else, especially night trains. Do it. Now I have to go, airport, check in, all of that. Bad for the environment as well. Yeah. If I want to leave and go anywhere else, which I occasionally do want to do. So take advantage of it. Enjoy those trains.
Well, actually, let's move on to your carte blanche, Ian. So you wanted something about data, I think.
Let's talk about trains. No, well, I'm enjoying this chat, but no, my only quick carte blanche was to say that I'm happy to see the use of more and more data-driven communications in public institutions at the moment, and it's probably not something that's going to create a whole debate here right now, but something I want to keep for people to keep an eye open for. We're seeing data-driven communication, meaning like using the information that you have to make your point. And I don't know if that's really applicable to the Schuman Show. I don't know if you can bring data in like a Spotify Wrapped or something for EU. But no, I just saying I see more and more. The European Parliament Research Service is doing a lot of great stuff on that. Mepassistant might be familiar with their work. It's something that we're trying to do more in Eurofound at the moment. We're trying to make sure that a lot of the research that we're doing is accessible for different people, for people who are really into it and want to go into the raw data and dig it all out and come up with their own answers, or for those who just want to have a better understanding of, say, people's experiences during COVID, or the situation of platform workers and their representation at the moment. So my carte blanche is just to say, get the data out there. I can't share my screen or show anything at the moment, but just to let you know that I'm happy seeing that happening more and more. See, the European Commission is doing its data crunch tweets, which is a nice way of showing information. They've done a lot of stuff around the war in Ukraine. And then you'll also have the council and a few others improving their websites more and more to have this like data-driven style. So happy to see it. And if anybody is watching and listening, they can get in touch with me to find out more about it. And I am encouraging you all to do it more.
What's a data crunch tweet?
They are sort of a mix of data visualization and concept. So you have images in these little 4 little sections of a tweet, and basically it tells a story across these 4 carousels, and it uses some graphs, some charts, some statistics, but also some nice visual design. The graphic design team in DGCom has been doing some really good work on this. So as someone, I used to be in DGCom, and then I was in Agri, and all the time I'm always looking at what the European Commission is doing in terms of its visual communications, and I'm happy to see the improvements that are taking place, and hopefully that's making it a little bit easier for the less familiar people to find out more about what's going on in the EU.
And like back when you were in the commission, is that something that you were arguing in favor? That was not on the radar back then. This kind of.
I was there when we got our first graphic designer in the first place.
Oh wow!
So that was a game changer there. And the end of the Barroso Commission started the Juncker Commission, and that really improved the general visual identity work of the European Commission. Yeah.
So you're telling me that before we're talking 2012, 2013, something like that when you joined?
Yeah,
there was
2014, 2013.
There was no graphic designer in the commission?
No, in the social media side of things, because you keep in mind that, as the platforms developed, all of a sudden we started having better options to upload videos, different images that we could put in there as well. Twitter was probably mostly text-based before as well. So really it was just moving with the times. And we were still using images to highlight news items and whatnot. But when it came to a more specific need to, do visual quotes or to make a nice picture with the commission logo on it. Now this was already happening in publications. You have your typesetters, so that was fine. But it was a different field than seeing that happen more and more in social media. We started doing more fact sheets, the PDFs that accompanied press releases to kind of make it a little bit more accessible as well. And there's been a huge web migration over the last couple of years, moving to a new content management system. So the whole European Commission website has become more harmonized, more rationalized, because at one stage it was just like, lots of different styles, different colors, different font types and everything everywhere. So I'm always happy to see, I don't know if other people see the good communications work that's going on in the Commission, Parliament, Council, but in general, I'm encouraged to see, the improvements.
Yeah, I think there's a big step up in the communication, especially this mandate. I really saw I saw the people getting familiar with it during the previous mandate, so 2014, 2019, and like from 2019 to now, like they are really embracing the things and etc. Like if you look at Digitrade, I think is really good at their communication. They're really, really good. In the parliament, they're going. I mean, we got to the point where even the EPP is doing memes. I mean, imagine like in 2014, like back when I was in parliament, so I was working for EPP MEPs. If you had told me back then, yeah, the EPP is going to make memes, I would be like, wow,
no one said they were going to be good.
Actually, yeah, they made some good ones. They actually made some pretty good ones. I have to say. I would say that for now, the best in the game in terms of political groups are the socialists. The socialists are doing like I see it especially on Instagram. They do like very good memes pretty regularly. So I would say that right now the SND is at the top of the game, let's say, on the use of memes. But yeah, EPP, every once in a while, they have good ideas. They are pretty bold with things that they're doing. So yeah, I was positively impressed, given that knowing how the EPP is, it's I can imagine it was challenging.
Punching down, do they? So that makes comedy easier if you're.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at the same time, they're also taking risks at some point. I've seen some things. You say, okay, you're taking a risk there. I mean, they can get flack from it, etc. But they're trying, and I mean, I at some point, I think it was a couple of years ago when they started to make like some really good ones, and I was discussing like I was in a Twitter discussion with some other people, and like there was even like green people from the Green saying, "Oh shit! I mean, if even the EPP is stepping up their games, what are we going to do?"
I think the GIFs are gone now, though, right? I mean, GIFs aren't cool anymore. I've heard.
That's terrible for me.
From younger people have told me.
Oh,
Yeah.
the youths. Did you speak to a youth?
I spoke a youth. The youths told me that the GIFs aren't. No, they're not. They're not to be used anymore. Short videos are fine. Reaction videos are okay, but the actual and like in fairness now, for the various WhatsApp groups I'm a part of, I sometimes go into my phone media section and I have all these ridiculous GIFs that I just don't want there anymore. So. You heard it here first.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get on board with that because I started with GIF. I mean, back in the days, like 10 years ago, I was the GIF guy. I was the GIF. If you wanted someone a specialist about GIFs in the bubble, I was the guy. I literally had a folder with like maybe 10,000 GIFs that I could like. I knew. Say if I was seeing a situation, I was like, okay, that GIF was going to be perfect with that, and so my Tumblr was basically GIFs. Those were the days.
Time period when you had to have a file of your own reaction GIFs. Oh, that is diligent.
Oh, yeah. We did a thing back before the EU 60 campaign, so the 60-year anniversary of the signing of the Rome treaties, where we tried to create a sort of a competition called EU GIF Story. So, but encouraging people to use the archive footage from the audiovisual portal to create their own EU-style GIFs. And needless to say, it just attracted a very niche group of people who one of whom actually ended up getting a job in the social media team. So that was a winner. But we started our presence on Giphy with that campaign. So that was the inception for GIFs in the European Commission.
Actually, I saw that. I think when I was looking for visual, like for the Twitch channel, I was looking for GIFs like to go with the my sub alerts, etc. So I was looking on Giphy, and I saw like indeed some of the commission one. I might have a couple of them in my alert libraries somewhere, but yeah, I mean those were the days when you could make GIF. And there's still a few good ones. I mean, some MEPs make GIFs about themselves. Some are pretty good. I don't know if you saw the. Katalin says so she's a vice president of vice chair of the Renew group. She has a pretty good one. There's one where she's like in the parliament doing the money thing, doing a speech, but it's not like staged. She's not like forcing it on camera. It's just literally as part of a speech. At some point, she was talking about Orban, and she was like arguing and doing like Orban's using EU money like that. And there's plenty of goof gif like this. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's it. But look, keep an eye out on the GIFs. Keep an eye out for the data-driven visualizations. Let's move stuff away from PDF more and more. Put it onto in HTML. Put it onto websites, and and I think it's positive to see that coupled with the fact that there's now a EU politics comedy show in Brussels. You know, this is just good times. I think we're coming out of the pandemic with a lot of positivity.
Yep, that sounds good. And yeah, I mean, unless someone wants to add something, I think we're a pretty good place. I mean, I'm looking at the time and want to keep you longer than necessary. I mean, we already went a bit longer than I usually do, but thanks again for being there and very interesting conversation. We talked about a lot of things. When I think back on the thing, we talked memes, railway, data. So yeah, it was very entertaining, very funny. So thanks again, Ian, Louise, and Daniel for coming over. You can chat, of course, thank them. You can follow Ian and Louise on Twitter. You have their ads just below the video feed, so do check them out. Of course, for those of you in Brussels who haven't yet seen the Schuman Show, I strongly encourage you to go see it. Definitely something that a good use of your time one evening, so definitely do that. There's a website, they have the Twitter account, so you can find tickets when there are shows and all that, so I do encourage you to do that. And yeah, on this note, I wish you all a good evening, good night and weekend, then see you next time. Bye everyone.
Thanks.